In a land of mighty rivers, lazy bayous, woodlands, wetlands, and underwater gardens, the bounty of nature comes alive in America's Delta. This is a story about the price of progress, the challenges of mimicking the mysteries of the natural world, and the value of commitment to a cause greater than most, the survival of a species. It is a story of loss and recovery, but most of all, it's a celebration of hope that is born of new beginnings and the majestic return of the whooping crane.
My heart just beat fast, It was just, everybody was smiling from ear to ear. It's an experience that I can't adequately describe because it was so wonderful to have them back.
In 2012, a group of young whooping cranes, one of the world's most majestic and endangered species, was painstakingly transported to this remote patch of marshland in western Louisiana. This complex operation was part of an intensive international rescue effort to ensure the survival of these striking creatures. They have soared above the earth for 60 million years, but by the early 1940s, only 21 adult birds separated the species from extinction. Of the more than 400 whooping cranes that exist in the wild today, a small but growing number are trying to make a comeback in the coastal wetlands their ancestors once called home. With a height up to 5 feet, the whooping crane is the tallest bird in North America. On the ground, an adult crane's torso appears all white, but in flight, the 7.5 to 8 foot wingspan is tipped in black. Distinctive red crowns cap their heads, and like other wading birds, they explore their world with a long, dagger-like beak.
Whooping cranes are formidable. When you walk up to a whooping crane, they're 5 feet tall, so they're, standing face to face. Their beak is massive.
But it is their call which is perhaps most recognizable, the whooping sound for which they are named.
Their calls are unmistakable. They're loud and can be heard for over a mile away. They'll call early in the morning, they'll call to identify their territory, and a bonded pair of cranes will perform an impressive unison call and dance as part of their breeding courtship behavior.
Historically, migratory flocks traveled thousands of miles each year from northern Canada as far south as Texas, Mexico, and Florida, and then back again. But since the start of the 20th century, massive changes to the American landscape meant a dangerous decline for the whooping crane. Much of the crane's prairie grassland habitat was transformed for agricultural use.
After the railroad broke across the Chaffly River heading west, it became more settlements and farms, and the habitat alteration was a big blow to the whooping cranes that existed in Louisiana.
And like most of America's other birds and waterfowl, they were also hunted.
People lived off the land and they did shoot them and eat them. Ultimately, we are responsible for the decline of this species. It was human actions that altered the habitat or that shot the cranes. So we're responsible for bringing them back.
In the early 1800s, Louisiana had the largest concentration of whooping cranes in the country. Because of its vast wetland system and temperate to tropical climate, Louisiana had been home to both migratory and non-migratory groups of whooping cranes. But by the 1940s, Louisiana's cranes had declined to only 13 individuals. One storm all but wiped out that flock. One of the last few birds was found injured in Evangeline Parish. But what to do with her?
When someone captures a bird that's that rare, you of course go to the authorities and say, what do I do with this bird? And the closest zoo was the Audubon Park Zoo. And so they decided to put her there.
Affectionately named Josephine, she sparked the public's imagination and inspired a lifelong dedication to these birds for many at the time, including Mary Lynch Corville.
Josephine is probably one of the most renowned cranes in the world because she was the first captive crane to actually lay within that captive area and hatch chicks.
Her celebrity lasted 24 years, but sadly, Of her hatchlings that reached adulthood, none survived to reproduce. That brought an end to the genetic line for Louisiana's whooping cranes.